A missing person's backstory of the days and weeks leading up to their disappearance can often prove to be a vital clue as to their mental state and travel plans, which could help investigators piece together their last movements. But this isn't always enough, since many true crime cases contain a lot of information that is usually seen as helpful, but they remain unsolved and may take years to be unraveled. Number 10. The details of the incident aren't clear, but on the 22nd of June 2025, someone contacted the Winnebago County Sheriff's Office to request that they conduct a welfare check at the house of 25-year-old Mitchell Reef. At the time, Mitchell was living in Winkin, Wisconsin, and when officers arrived at his address, they were unable to find any sign of him. With no clues as to where he went or what happened to him, a missing person investigation was started. 3 days later, a member of the public contacted the police to report that they'd come across a car that looked as though it had been in an accident before being abandoned on East Circle Drive in Somo. At first, the two cases weren't believed to have been connected, but when officers searched the immediate vicinity around the car, they found an ID that made it clear the car belonged to Mitchell. This caused them a great deal of concern, since no one would willingly abandon their vehicle and leave their ID lying on the ground, unless they were fleeing from something or someone, or they were in a great deal of distress. When it was discovered that Mitchell lived in Winkin, the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office got in contact with the Winnebago County Sheriff's Office, and they were able to confirm that Mitchell is the subject of a missing person case. Searches were then carried out in both of these areas, and Mitchell's phone was found lying in a ditch, which only added further mystery to the case. In an effort to ascertain his last movements, investigators started looking for CCTV footage, and at last, they found their first clue. His car was seen driving near Prentice, Wisconsin, but it couldn't be determined whether he was behind the wheel. Then, a few days later, a landowner on Homestead Road contacted the authorities to report that one of their trail cameras captured something of interest. When the footage was checked, it showed a man fitting Mitchell's description walking through the woods at around 8:50 p.m. on the 22nd of June. The camera was set up about a half a mile south of the spot where his car had been abandoned. This added yet another area that needed to be searched, and when this was done, one of Mitchell's shoes was found lying on the ground, but searchers were unable to find any further leads and could not determine which way he was traveling. Since that day, nothing further has been found, and Mitchell's current whereabouts remain a mystery. Anybody who has seen Mitchell, or who can help track him down, should contact the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office at 715-536-6272. Number 9. 74-year-old Naiping Ho is known as the father of a cryptocurrency expert, and he's been missing since the 18th of March 2025. The authorities have stated that his disappearance is being treated as suspicious, since the case includes some very strange details that they're hoping to unravel as quickly as possible. Naiping originally hails from China, but has been living in California, specifically in Rancho Cucamonga. He's been retired for some time and is known to have a love for table tennis and woodworking. He was reported as missing by his family after they requested a welfare check at his house on the 4th of May. Officers became concerned when they arrived at his home and immediately found signs that he'd likely been taken against his will by persons unknown. His family would then reveal that he was last seen at his house on the 18th of March and that they'd been unable to make contact with him, which is why they requested the welfare check. In the weeks that followed, no further signs of Naiping were found, but the case took a sinister turn when it was reported that someone had sold some of his vehicles without permission and had even attempted to rent out his house. Whoever was behind these transactions obviously knew that he was missing and may have been involved in his disappearance. The police then told his family on the 9th of July that someone had accessed Naiping's bank accounts, after which they completed a number of fraudulent transactions. The culprit had somehow gained access to his funds and completely emptied out his bank accounts. Over $1 million worth of his money was used to purchase gold bars online, but the culprit's identity remains unknown. It's been suggested that Naiping was targeted because the culprits knew that his son had made a success out of his cryptocurrency dealings, and that he likely had a lot of money saved up. The family would later reveal that they've grown ever more suspicious over the fact that Naiping had become less active on the family chat group. This started in March, when his son invited him to spend his birthday in Las Vegas. He declined, which was also seen as strange. Instead, his son sent him some homemade Chinese noodles for his birthday, and to his surprise, he received no thank you for the gift. Instead, he received a text message that simply said, "Yes, I received it." With their suspicions mounting, his family traveled to his house and upon their arrival, found the noodles still sitting on the porch. They realized that the house had been emptied and that all of his furniture was missing, as were his vehicles. Naiping's wife was visiting relatives in China at the time, and she then received a text from his phone in which she was told to cancel her flight to the US since he was planning on meeting her in China instead. Investigators are certain that Naiping has been abducted, and that his captors are using his phone to impersonate him to his family. A $250,000 reward is being offered to anyone who can provide information leading to Naiping being found and his kidnappers being identified. Anyone who can aid in furthering this investigation is urged to contact the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department Specialized Investigations Division at 909-890-4848. Number 8. The family of 53-year-old Melissa Casius has been left baffled by her disappearance, since her last known movements on the 26th of June are very out of character for her and seem to make no sense. Melissa's husband, Mark, was the last known person to see her before she vanished. He told investigators that on the morning, he and Melissa had traveled to the Los Alamos laboratory in Los Alamos, New Mexico together. They're both employed at the lab, and when she dropped him off, he made sure to tell her that he would need the car at around 11 a.m. that morning. Melissa then drove to a different area at the lab since she had an assignment to complete for work, and they parted ways after she assured him that she would have the car back by 11. He added that she seemed completely normal, and he had no cause to believe that anything was wrong. But Melissa had left her employee card at home, and so returned there to complete her work remotely. Her daughter heard her arrive at the house at around 7:45 a.m., and the family has been left confused since she could not have entered the premises to drop Mark off without showing her badge, since she was the one driving their car. Melissa's daughter then went to work at the John Dunn shops in Taos. At around 12:30 p.m., she arrived at her daughter's workplace and gave her a Subway sandwich. She left at around 12:57 after her daughter handed her a check and asked her to drop it off at the bank. She would add that she was not acting strangely in any way. Back at the lab, Mark became concerned when Melissa didn't arrive with their car as promised, but he assumed that she'd been caught up in her work. But her boss then phoned him to inform him that she never arrived for work, and Mark tried calling her but got no answer. He then called their daughter and asked her to text Melissa since he needed a ride. She sent a screenshot of the request to her mother's phone, and the message was read, but neither she nor Mark received a reply. As if the case wasn't strange enough, a friend of the family then reported seeing Melissa walking along the NM 518, heading east in the direction of Pot Creek. This was confirmed by CCTV footage from the area, but it could not be determined whether she seemed to be in any kind of distress. Mark and their daughter then tried to make contact with Melissa again, but their texts didn't deliver to her phone, and it was assumed that it had been turned off. When the daughter arrived at home, the doors were locked and the car was parked in the garage. Melissa's keys and work phone were left on the kitchen table, and in her office, she found her cell phone, purse, and wallet. When she tried to unlock the phone, she realized it had been reset to factory settings. The check that Melissa was supposed to drop off at the bank was also found in her office, and at 5 p.m., Mark arrived home and reported her as missing. Search efforts were unsuccessful, and in the weeks that followed, it became apparent that Melissa had, unbeknownst to her family, been under a lot of stress, as was evidenced by paperwork that they found. Anyone who has seen Melissa or has any information on her whereabouts should contact the New Mexico State Police Dispatch at 505-425-6771. Number 7. According to reports by the family of 34-year-old Paul Aragun, they've been unable to get in contact with him since the last time that they spoke to him on the 28th or 29th of April 2025, and they're desperate to figure out what happened to him. Unfortunately, Paul was having a rough time when he disappeared. He just completed the Lifeline Transitional Housing Program, which aims to aid people who are homeless by providing them with support and resources in a bid to help them become self-reliant. Despite this, he was living in his truck in the Aurora area of Colorado, and his family stated that he may have been working in either Littleton or Lakewood, but they did not disclose what type of work he was doing. The last person to speak to him was his mother, Janice. They were in the habit of regularly keeping in contact, so when she was unable to get a hold of him due to unanswered calls on the 25th of April, she became concerned. When it came to light that he hadn't been to work, those concerns became heightened, and at around 3:15 a.m. on the 2nd of May, a police officer in Broomfield unexpectedly came across Aragun's truck. It had been abandoned in a construction area near Edgeview Drive, close to a Woodspring Suites hotel. At the time, the officer knew who the truck belonged to, and upon approaching, he was surprised to find that the engine was still running and that a dog had been left inside. A drone was used to search the area, but Aragun could not be located. He and fellow officers tried to contact him, but got no answer. And when they checked with the hotel's reception, they were told that he'd not checked into the hotel. Nothing suspicious was found around the vehicle, and the officers left, but they returned the next day to find the scene the same as the day before. Aragun's dog was taken to a local shelter, and the area was searched again to no avail. The family was notified that his truck and dog had been located, and they then filed a missing person report. They've been left baffled by the fact that his truck was found where it was, and that he left his dog unattended, since this isn't something he would ever do. Janice traveled to Aragun's truck every day in case he returned there, but on the 16th of May, it was finally towed away by the authorities. It's since been discovered that he may have been in the Rocky Flats National Wildlife Refuge area in Bloomfield, since his phone connected to a tower there, and a search was conducted, but nothing was found. Investigators have asked that anyone who knows where Paul is or what happened to him to contact the Broomfield Police Department at 303-438-6400. Number 6. 21-year-old Kevin Collins Jr. has been missing since February of 2025, and his family is struggling to understand the events that led up to his disappearance, as well as some of the strange details that emerged after he was reported as missing. On the 27th of February, Kevin was driving his car in Piles Grove, New Jersey, when he made a call to 911. He stated that he was trying to get away from someone who was harassing him, but his family believes that he was experiencing a mental episode. He hadn't pulled over, and shortly after the call, he was pulled over by state troopers who noticed he was driving erratically. After speaking to Kevin, they realized that he was the one who called 911 earlier, and that he had an outstanding warrant. He'd been pulled over on a previous occasion and could not produce his driver's license during that incident. He was taken to the police station, where he was evaluated by medical staff, and it was determined that he was fit to be released. But he would call the police again later that same day, again stating that he believed someone was coming after him. This time, after officers spoke to him, they realized that he was having a mental health crisis, and he was taken to the Inspira Medical Center in Woodstown. He was received at the hospital, and while waiting to see a doctor, he seemingly decided to flee on foot, wearing only a hospital gown. When staff at the hospital realized that he was gone, they checked his room and found that he'd left without his keys, phone, or shoes. Police officers scoured the surrounding area in hopes that he hadn't gone far, but all they found was his robe, which he decided to get rid of for reasons unknown. It was located behind a flooring plant close to a set of railroad tracks. And just before 5 p.m. that afternoon, a trail camera in a wooded area captured an image of Kevin that has left his family even more concerned for his well-being, as it showed him walking through the woods unclothed, with his hands raised high above his head. This image has not been made available to the public. This is the last time that Kevin was seen, and his whereabouts remain unknown. Since he was known to be in a bad mental state while at the hospital, he's considered vulnerable, and his family needs him to be found as soon as possible. But no new leads have been received in his case, and investigators have ended all searches for him and will only follow up if new information is received. If you've spotted Kevin or know where he could be, you're asked to contact the New Jersey Police Troop A Woodstown Station at 856-882-2000 and ask for extension 2554. Number 5. There has been much speculation over the disappearance of 42-year-old Emilio Ganam. He's been missing since 2023, and it's been suggested that not only his disappearance, but also that of another man, could be linked to a certain religious organization. Emilio hails from Nashville, Tennessee, but has been living in California for about 20 years. In May of 2025, he decided to visit the Inland Empire, which is an inland area adjacent to the Southern Californian coast. This came after he decided to leave a church, where he was by all accounts a devout member. He then moved back to Nashville, but while on tour of the Inland Empire, he mysteriously vanished. While he was a member of the church, which is based in Hemet, he and his fellow parishioners worked at a pest control company called Full Shield Incorporated. His family stated after leaving the group, he seemed genuinely happy and was glad to have started a new chapter in his life. While on the trip to California, he booked into an Airbnb in Moreno Valley, and it's known that he bought a cup of coffee at a Starbucks in Redland on the 5th of May, after which he's not been seen again. After he was reported missing, it was found that he never went back to the Airbnb since all his belongings were still in his room. His rental car, a white Nissan Frontier, was picked up by a license plate reader in Colton the day after he vanished, but no further clues have been found. His family states that he was excited to have started his own pest control company in Nashville, and hence they don't believe he disappeared willingly, since he was planning to open a branch of the business in California, which was the reason for his visit. He was hoping that he could reconnect with some of the clients he met while working for the church, but it isn't known if this ever happened. It is known that Full Shield Inc. got wind of his efforts and that they served him with a cease and desist letter on the 8th of May. In the letter, they accused him of trying to steal their clients and claimed he was interfering with the company's clients. One news outlet tried to get to the bottom of the story by visiting a house in Menifee, where several of the church followers are known to be living, but no one answered the door when they knocked. It's known that the church members are aware of Emilio's disappearance, but despite having known him for more than 20 years, they failed to make any efforts to help find him. When it came to light that another man, 49-year-old Ruben Moreno, was also a member of the church and had also gone missing in 2019, speculation ran rife that the cases might be connected. If anyone sees him or can provide any details on this case, you're urged to contact the Redlands Police Detective Bureau at 909-551-4424. Number 4. Concerns were growing for the safety of 22-year-old Long Li Sha, who went missing on the 26th of February after she was abducted. She's since been returned to her family, but her kidnappers remain unidentified. Long is known as a Chinese actress who's appeared in several short online films. At the time of her disappearance, she was studying at the Communication University of China, where she majored in what's called music play. But in February, she received an invitation to join a film project in Weinan, and she was excited at the prospect of furthering her chosen career. Upon her arrival in the city, she was met by a film crew who then drove her to a house in which he claimed belonged to a friend of his. When Long asked why she wasn't taken to a hospital as planned, he stated that the crew didn't have enough money to pay for the hotel room, but assured her that this was merely a temporary solution. She agreed to stay at the house after being told that she'd be booked into a hotel when they arrived in Xi'an, which is about an hour away from there. Following this, the case took a strange turn. Long's phone's GPS was turned off, and whenever she had a video call with her family or friends, the camera was turned off. Soon, her family started posting about her disappearance on social media platforms, but they then received a recorded video from her, in which she asked that these rumors be removed. Her family still felt that something was wrong, though, and they filed a missing person report. Strangely, she was released soon after this when she was dropped off at a train station. She then managed to contact her family and is now safely back home, but the case is far from solved. Long told the police that she was held captive by a group of about 10 people who took control of her cell phone. Once they became aware of the social media posts about her disappearance, they started to panic and forced her to record the video that was sent to her family. But not everyone is convinced. Many people have stated their belief that the entire case was orchestrated by Long as a publicity stunt in an effort to become famous online, an allegation that she has vehemently denied. China has become notorious for kidnapping cases in which criminals demand ransoms before returning missing individuals, but Lang's case remains an unsolved mystery for the time being. Number 3. The case of the disappearance of 72-year-old Julia Chuniel from the Los Rios region of Chile is one that contains some strange and disturbing details that have left her family and friends fearing that she may be a victim of foul play. Julia is a leader of the South American Mapuche tribe and is known for her activism regarding about 900 hectares of forest that are under threat in the region. What's worried her family and investigators is the fact that she's received many threats in the past. These threats came after the Putragel people claimed land in the area, and it started affecting local businesses that relied on the lumber of the forest. One particular businessman has been very vocal about his irritation with Julia, and her family believes he may have had a hand in her disappearance. The man is known to be a descendant of 19th century German settlers, and he stood to receive land thanks to the dictatorship's land acquisition process. It comes as no surprise then that he did everything in his power to drive Julia off the land, but she refused to leave. On one occasion, he told her that he'd already bought all the surrounding land and that she might as well sell hers to him, but she declined. She then told her family that if something were to happen to her, they could be certain that this man was responsible. Then, on the 8th of November, 2024, Julia walked into the forest accompanied by her 3 dogs. She planned to look for animals in the Mafil Hill area, but she never returned home and has not been seen or heard from since, and only 2 of her dogs were later found unharmed at her house. Her family told investigators that they fear for her life, since it's known that the same businessman once attempted to run her over and later claimed not to have seen her while he was driving down the road. Subsequent searches revealed a set of unusual pickup truck tracks in the area from where she vanished, and Julia's walking stick and pillow were found in a small shed about 3 miles from her house. Fears for her safety continue to grow, since Julia isn't the first activist to be threatened in the Los Rios area. In 2016, Macarena Valdez was found deceased after she campaigned against a hydroelectric power plant being built in the region, and it's now been suggested that she was silenced by someone who had financial interests in the plant. It's since come to light that the businessman in question in Julia's case approached her on several occasions and offered her an undisclosed amount of money to leave the land that he was interested in. Her son has since stated that she couldn't possibly have gotten lost while out in the forest, since she knows the area better than anyone and would have no trouble finding her way home. A leader of an accompanying community has added that they're also constantly harassed by businessmen who want to buy their land to strip it of lumber, and who refuse to take no for an answer. For the time being, though, no further details have been made available, and only time will tell if Julia's case will ever be solved. Number 2. 33-year-old Ella Goodie originally hails from Lafayette in Louisiana, and as an adult she worked as a Lyft driver, despite initially being wary of the job since she didn't enjoy the idea of driving strangers around in her car. She's known as a caring person, which is evidenced by the fact that she's been taking care of her mother who's handicapped, and her younger brother since she was a young girl. She started working as a driver in 2012, and soon settled into the role as she started enjoying meeting new people. By this time, she'd relocated to Scott in Lafayette Parish and also had 2 children, both of whom were teenagers. But in 2022, the family's life took a turn for the worse. On the 9th of March that year, Ella spoke to her brother at around noon, and she stated that she'd been hired by a passenger who needed to be taken to Houston, Texas. She then left that day and never returned home. 12 hours after she set out, her car, a black 2012 Audi Q5, was seen being driven back to Louisiana by security cameras, but it isn't known who was operating the vehicle. The next day, her car was captured by cameras again, this time at north of Dallas, and when she hadn't returned home by the 11th, she was reported as missing. When investigators tried to locate Ella's phone, it was found to have pinged off a tower close to Iowa in Louisiana. It's known that she was in the company of a man named Brandon Germain Francisco, who often made use of her rideshare services. But Lyft stated that Ella wasn't driving through their rideshare platform that day, which is not unusual since she would often do so privately. Since Francisco was the last person seen with her, he's been named as a person of interest in Ella's case. The case took an interesting turn when it came to light that Francisco had been arrested after a warrant was issued over his failure to appear in court. Strangely, that court date was set for the same day on which Ella disappeared. He was facing felony charges linked to an incident that took place on the 24th of December, 2018, in which he discharged a firearm and was subsequently charged with attempted second-degree murder, along with a slew of other charges. He was found guilty in that case and sentenced to 30 years behind bars, but he's not been formally charged in Ella's case. Her car was eventually located when it was found abandoned in St. Joseph, Missouri. It's not been revealed why this decision was made, but investigators then announced that they believed Ella had been murdered, and her case has been upgraded to a homicide investigation. Anyone who can aid investigators in finding Ella should contact the Scott Police Department at 337-233-3715. Number 1. Shortly before 59-year-old Debbie Collier went missing, she sent a strange message to her daughter, which led her family to believe that she was in danger, and unfortunately their worst fears have come true. In September of 2022, Debbie was employed at Carriage House Realty Inc., where she worked as the front office manager. She was married to Steve Collier, and according to her family, was a Georgia Bulldogs fan. At the time, she didn't have access to her car since it was in the shop undergoing repairs, so she resorted to renting a Chrysler Pacifica. On the 10th of September, she left the family's house with nothing more than her driver's license and a debit card, and then promptly disappeared without explanation. The following day, the rental car was found in Clarksville along Georgia Highway 15. It was discovered by a police sergeant who found it strange that it was parked in a pullout area that leads to an old logging road. An officer from Tallulah Falls then reported that he'd seen the same car in that spot around 5 p.m. the previous day, but he chose not to investigate since drivers often pull over in that area. The car was found unlocked and contained no clues as to where Debbie may have gone. After she was reported missing, Debbie's daughter Amanda revealed some troubling information on the case. She stated that she'd spoken to her mother on the phone the day before she disappeared, and that initially she seemed to be acting normally. A short while later, she received a notification that Debbie had transferred $2,400 to her via the Venmo app, though it was paid using her husband's account. This was seen as strange, but the case took an even more sinister turn when she then received a message from Debbie which read, "They're not going to let me go. Love you." Then the family's worst fears were confirmed. The following day, Debbie was found deceased 60 miles away from her home in a wooded area, close to Tallulah Falls. When the area was searched, investigators found a red tote bag near a tree that had fallen over. They also came across a blue tarp that showed signs that it had been set alight, and when they found Debbie, she was unclothed and still holding onto a small tree with her right hand. Evidence was collected from the scene and then sent to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation to be analyzed. An autopsy revealed that Debbie had suffered several injuries before her life was ended, and that she had ingested superheated gases. High levels of hydrocodone were present in her system, and it's believed that her attacker attempted to dispose of evidence by setting her remains on fire, but failed. Strangely, Debbie was captured on surveillance video at a Family Dollar store in Habersham County. In the footage, she could be seen purchasing a blue tarp, a red tote bag, a disposable lighter, a rain poncho, and a 2-pack of paper towels on the 10th of September. It was later revealed that Amanda visited that same store that day, and that she's never contacted its manager since viewing the footage of her mother. During the resulting investigation, several search warrants have been issued, and many people believe that Debbie's life was ended by a serial killer, though no supporting evidence has been found for this theory. Anyone who can aid in the investigation into Debbie's case is asked to contact the Habersham County Sheriff's Office investigators at 706-839-0559. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.